Welcome to the Principal Podcast, where we talk about how the best professional services firms grow. Whether you're looking to scale your firm or learn from the stories of founders and leaders who've done it, you're in the right place. Join us as we interview the best leaders in professional services. Let's get on with the show.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're fortunate today to have Colin Hunter, the CEO and founder of PotentialSquared, a very interesting business dynamic that, as I read about Colin, a lot of things going on that he's accomplished. I want him to share his story with us today. So, Colin, when people get involved in starting an enterprise or a business, and in your instance, a very unique consulting service that you have, tell us, how did you figure out you wanted to do this, and how did your journey start?
By luck, Dennis. So thank you.
There you go.
And it's a lucky journey, but I believe that somewhere along the line, something you do gives you luck. And I had started a new career. I was thinking of starting a new career. I was doing an MBA. And doing that MBA, one of the people had seen me probably in my real time. I'd had a tough time in the previous role I'd held. And I decided at that point almost to fall out of my own thinking and be myself and be the person that I should have been for many years before that. And in doing that, somebody noticed me, noticed my behaviors, and they had been looking at an assessment center for a particular role, and they failed it. And when they failed it, the person said, "Do you know anybody else who could do this role?" And they recommended me and another colleague who was on the MBA. And I never even thought about coming into this profession, but the first day I tried it, I love this. I haven't really looked back since. So a bit of luck, but a bit of judgment in terms of making that decision to be myself at that stage of my career. Yeah.
And this was back in the early part of 2000s, correct?
It is, yeah. Well before, actually, probably about 3 or 4 years before that. So,
okay.
And if I look at what happened next, it was then running a business, starting to look at with another partner. And I think this is another common theme that's been through here, is I felt the need for a business partner. And a lot of us do feel that it's almost like our idea is not worthy. We need somebody to support us. But in doing that, my business partner at the time and I were very successful for about 6 years. And then there was a phase where I opened up the new business, which is now PotentialSquared. And that was all around the ability to practice what we preach. So a lot of consultants, a lot of people in our industry are very good at talking a good talk, but less about living a good talk. And therefore, I got involved in experimentation, creating playgrounds for myself and my clients to start to look at how I could do something different. And that's the business is now a playground business. Sometimes described as a laboratory business, but exploring different ways of doing things. Yeah.
I love the playground business. Yeah. So, and I also love the name PotentialSquared. What did you come up with that?
2 bottles of wine, Dennis. It was one of those, and I'm sure a lot of people out there find this, you try to get a name. I had Flying Pigs Consulting at one point. I was trying everything. And then my wife said, "I think you need a bit more positivity. And what about positivity squared?" And then PotentialSquared came out of that. So that's 2 bottles of wine later. Yeah. So.
And good input from a significant other. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when you look at what you do for your customers and you go in and you analyze and try and come up with ideas to help improve them, why is that important to you as an individual to be able to offer that?
I think if I look back at what I missed and what I needed when I was earlier in my career, there's no map. It's a bit like being a parent. There's no map to being a parent. And to be a leader, there was a lot that I could have done differently early on in my career. One of them was to be myself. Okay. I had some good leaders, but I didn't really have the chance to express and play and be playful in what I did. And therefore, what I believed in now is that if I am going to disrupt the way people are led, whatever industry it is, then I need to get a playground to actually have a go at different things. And not every one of them works. If I hold a philosophy that probably 80% of my new ideas fail, I need a way of doing that quickly, experimenting. But I also need clients who are willing to do that with me.
Correct.
So that's what I set this business up to do, is to give them a chance as clients to work with me or work with somebody who didn't know all the answers, but was willing to partner with them to start to explore what the answers could be. Yeah.
Give me an example of what you mean by that. I mean, I think the audience would like to know, and if you could describe, okay, here's an issue I isolated or analyzed. Here's the journey I want my client and I to go on in this experiment. Give me an example of what that might be.
So the holy grail in our work is leadership measurement, impact measurement. So if you think about that, it can be, if you think about the levels, you can get happiness for somebody going through a training course or a coaching piece. They can go back to work and they might apply 3 things and they might do it for a month. But what we're fundamentally doing is trying to get to level 3, where we start to make a shift in the way we do business with clients, etc.
Okay.
And the 4th level is really, how do we make a huge impact on the organization and measure it? So when we were looking at one particular client in mind, we were starting to say, so almost as if we were to get the award for leadership impact measurement, what would it take for us to really move that needle? And what we did was we realized that 2 things. One is we needed an assessment to do that. So we created one. And then secondly, we needed groups of people to go through that and play around with different techniques. And so we use actors. For example, in conversations, one of the key metrics was coaching. But we got professional actors. We put in something called forum theater to there, where we created the ability for people to adapt their conversation in real time as a group, almost with a remote control, to say, I'm going to do this approach. I'm going to be really tough for the next 2 minutes. And the group would watch. The actors would react to that toughness. And then we'd pause and we'd say, okay, so how well did that work? And normally it worked a bit, but we could have tweaked and changed something. So somebody else would get in the seat. It's a bit like tag team in wrestling. Somebody else would get in, have a go. And what we'd start to do is we'd start to establish almost habits that work, patterns of behavior that work with people and how they engage. And by training the actors to respond, so if you give them a pinch, they give a proportionate ouch back. We were able to explore the art of conversation. And there's not one way to have those conversations, but people were able to develop it. And then we were able, with the assessment, to do an assessment measurement after they'd been through those programs, those development. And we started to shift all 5 needles that we were aiming at in there. So, yeah.
So you did simulated exchanges of communication, otherwise known as role plays at times.
Yeah.
And then you put someone through it, you observe their behavior, then you said, okay, now it's time for you to try and replicate. And you're trying to condition them to become more effective in either a conflict area, a discussion area, and then you would measure. And then to make it work, at least in my life of 50 years in business, you have to manage the execution of the behavior. Otherwise, what's going to happen, it'll be an event. It will not be a process. So the event of the exchange is great, and everyone feels good, rah, rah, hot darn, let's go get them, and all that good stuff. But then the reality sits in, and your learned behavior fades without execution and implementation by management. How do you execute that?
Well, that's the interesting bit. So if I give you a slightly the same example, but a different context, we're one of the largest providers of internal audit training for financial services.
Okay.
And we've got recognition from the external auditors, for providing assurance of the behavior of auditors and how they carry out their work. And what any organization is wanting to do is, how strong is the quality of those conversations with their auditees, looking at risk and control frameworks in business. Okay. Now, what we were able to do was we were able to give not just one toolkit or one approach or one habit, but in that moment, they will have an auditee that might react differently on depending on the day, their pressure, their time.
Right.
So it's a bit like Tiger Woods, throwing 20 balls into different parts of the course and saying, right, I can play a shot from anywhere. What we are doing is actually giving people a chance to play different types of shots with different types of clients. Okay. And by doing that, the habitual patterns when they had a trigger in a conversation. There's a habitual pattern. So a bit like sport, we practice enough.
Good.
Habitually, something comes into our mind which says, so this is the question I ask here, or I'm hearing something that I never heard before, so I need to dig deep into that. And by doing that, it's all about practice. Even now, I'm 60, I'm still practicing the conversations. I'm still practicing what it is like to have a conversation with a client, to sell to a client. So how do I create those patterns of habits that make me more effective? So hopefully I've answered your question, but that's what we do. Yeah.
No, I understand it. And you want to try and make sure it becomes learned behavior, not something that is sporadic, but established. And that with adults, that takes time, as you're well aware. Yeah. When I worked at Xerox Corporation and was a national trainer there, we felt that we analyzed how to break down adults and their learning behavior. And it would take an adult 90 days of almost repetitive, constant reminding, execution of the behavior before it becomes somewhat learned to a degree where it's competent. Yeah. A child learns in 30 days because they don't have bad habits. So we're having to not only educate, but break bad habits the older people get. So I applaud you for your fortitude, or as the Scottish would say, and that's my ancestry, stick-to-itiveness. You got to stick to it. There you go. Yeah. All right. So tell me now, how do people, when they hear about what you do, how does your name get out there in the business world for people to engage your services? Tell me the methods of marketing you're currently using.
So I'm using a number of different methods, from LinkedIn to written work. I use the book that you can see over my shoulder here, Be More Wrong.
I like that name.
Yeah.
We'll get into that in just a little bit.
Yeah, I was sat next to Michael Bungay-Stanier, who wrote The Coaching Habit, probably one of the best-selling leadership management books. And he was just finishing off The Coaching Habit, and I sat next to him in the association we both are members of. And we were talking about it, and his key message in here is this: the coaching habit for him was a business card. How do I get a business card out into the world? And therefore, how do I get my teachable points of view out into the world? So I used the book, Be More Wrong, and use that almost as a business card to start talking about my experience, talking about playgrounds. But what I've experimented with and failed as many as other people who are listening to this podcast would also fail in is there's a lot going on in social media. There's a lot going on in messaging. There's a lot going on in communication. So I've experimented with a few things. One, I ran my own podcast called the Leadership Tales Podcast. Ran that for 6 seasons. And that really got my name out in there and into the world, and got a lot of work from that. But what I've realized with that and other social media is you're only as good as the work you do and the reputation and the person who's talking about you. So I've doubled down on this, we used to call the advocacy ladder. At the top of the advocacy ladder, who are the people who are out there without prompting will recommend your name in the workplace? And so therefore that's what I maximize on. So to do that, there's a couple of things that are key for me. One is I won't charge for work that I don't believe isn't effective. So 1, 2 is measurement. And in there, so we clear measures at the beginning of what we're trying to do and measure on that. But the third one, and the most important thing, is the depth of relationships. And so to that American film called Pay It Forward, which I was a big fan of, what we do is we do a lot of work for other people. We've got relationships that are 20, 25 years old in the business, and they are based on freshness of ideas, depth of relationship, and being meaningful every conversation we have, whether it's as a friend or as a business contact. But it's all about respect. So that's what I double down on. I know it sounds almost motherhood and apple pie in some ways, but if you practice,
well phrased,
but if you practice those every day in terms of the quality of your relationships, then my belief, with a practice what you preach, then I believe that people will believe you and trust you. Yeah.
Well, you live what you teach, or you live what you consult, and more importantly, they feel that. And therefore, there's what's one of the most critical words in any relationship or business or personal is trust. And when you establish that trust of execution, and that trust, I think that you provided them with, more importantly, it's a relationship. We're going to help you out. I'm not necessarily going to charge you. I'm going to do what's the right thing to do if it's needed. And with that, those people feel that execution of what you said you would do, you do it. And then they can tell people, hey, when you guys work with Colin, it's going to be top notch. More importantly, they deliver what they say. And that's the best compliment you can get. So you have, if I recap, LinkedIn, your book, some dabbling in social media, but mostly it was 6 seasons of a podcast, and then complete belief in the advocacy ladder, and then depth of the relationship. Of those, as you look at them, which do you feel yields the highest return of customers contacting you because they were engaged in one of these methods of trying to get people to use you?
I would go with depth of relationships. I think one of the biggest challenges, Dennis, for any owner of a business is replicating practices, behaviors. And one of the biggest challenges, I have a core group of consultants who work with me, have worked with me for many years. And all of us are getting older. So the real challenge for me now is, how do I bring on younger consultants into that space to almost replicate that relationship-based selling approach, relationship-based development of a client relationship to do that. Whereas nowadays it tends to be much more shorter, sort of lower ticket items that are being sold. It's 1 hour, 2 hour programs. Whereas we built a lot of our work over the many years and say 3-day, 4-day, maybe over a 9-month program. So we're struggling with 2 things. One is replacing the people who are retiring from our team. So that's a challenge. And the second thing is about, as we get into more short-term, punchy delivery segments with clients, there's a word that keeps coming up, which is, how do you get sustainment of impact and relationship? So we're playing around with different methods to do that. But again, it's still about depth of relationship, quality of relationship. So that's the big one. But replacing people, it's very difficult to get the right people. You
got 2 challenges there. One, the pool of people that you want to try and find that would be similar to your team and yourself. And you're dealing with a different generation. I mean, you're dealing with a Gen Z generation that is more transactional, not relationship based. And I run into this problem with many executives like yourself when I have interviews. They go, what is your biggest issue? And a lot of it is the labor pool, the education, and the mindset that I want to cultivate to get these people on board, to have them be proficient at what I believe in, which is relationships, not transactions. And that's a big challenge. It's one that people are trying to figure out. And I think it's one of the ones that all business is facing as we go forward over the next 10 to 15 years. With your business, you get a client, they reach out. What's that selling cycle like from contact, initial engagement, to when they start to work with you? What's that normally like?
I think it's very difficult to put a norm on it, because most of our relationships are word of mouth. So we get a consistent message. You got to work with Colin, got to work with his team. But primarily it is about a no fee, structured question, interview, conversation around what they're trying to do. And I think one of the things I've learned over time is getting better at saying no when we don't believe we're the right organization to do it. Right. One of the other things we're getting better at doing is having a wider network of people around us who do things that we come up against. So recommendations, and we've got a recommendation fee structure around that. So we're doing that. So people are trusting that when they get a conversation with us, we might be the partner, but we are the people who can have the right conversation to dig into what's right for them. And then we also have the ability with our network to recommend people, whether it's innovation, design, thinking. So that's the first part of it. I think the second part of it is that unless somebody feels what we do, it is very difficult for them to get a view of the values. So we would tend to ask them to provide their toughest challenges, the difficult people, difficult leaders, might be a top team, depends on cultures as well, whether it's working in France, or whether working in the US. So we would say, bring your top people, bring your toughest people, and we'll work through that. And so therefore we test out with almost the toughest course and the toughest group of people whether our approach is right. And we're strong believers that our value is good. So if we don't get anything from that first engagement, we're not the right fit for the organization normally.
So you kind of do a pilot program, in some form or
taster.
aspect.
Yeah. And it can be a primer as well. That is the other thing I love about it is if you've got the people who are going to be your biggest blockers to running a program in the room, if they go away, as we were describing, the cool penguins, the ones who are willing to jump off the ice floe no matter what happens, then if you get them involved and they're bought in,
you're normally in.
Yeah, your advocates are there already. So that's what we do. So we've failed a number of times, but we also, I have a philosophy from a good old client friend who's no longer with us, but Drew Cameron always used to say, if things are going well, go and tell your client. If things are going badly, run and tell your client. And his teams always did that, and that's where
that's a
get it right.
Good philosophy.
Yeah.
So when you have a client, obviously you want customer retention. Do you have contracts that they go through for a statement of work, or is it just it's maybe a month or 2 months or an annual contract? And then how do you get them to re-up or renew that contract?
Yeah. Probably will admit contracting has been our weakness in the past because we trust. So a lot of the times we've had some painful experiences where we've trusted clients and got a painful result out of it. However, behind that belief is that MSAs, Master Service Agreements, SOW, statements of work, they should be in place. But there's a piece in here for me that if something is going well enough, so we had a client, Accenture, worked with them for about 20 years running the same program. And every year this program had a payback, which could be $2 million savings, $2 million new client base, whatever it was. There was a return on investment that always hit. So we never had to go back and renegotiate. It was always every year it's going to happen to do that. So that's my contracting message to clients is we will make the return and we'll do that. But
how is it? Yeah, the critical part is how's that measured? Is it tangible dollars that they say I spent this, and here's what my new profit margin is now it's X and Y. Y is 10% greater. That's always difficult to manage and measure.
I think there's a financial piece, there's a numbers piece, there's a feeling piece. So a lot of our programs we describe as change management programs because we get the people who are the biggest blockers, challengers, we get them in a room, and by the end of it, they're the ones who are going, this is great. This is the best program I've ever been through.
There you go. Yeah.
So, when we were working with an organization, bringing in an outside organization, 2Ping as we call it in the UK, but bringing them in together, we measured whether it felt like one organization after we'd done the program. And that was a real example. And I suppose that the final way that we've started to measure it is over 20, 25 years, the people who were on our programs 20 years ago are now running the business. Yeah.
There you go.
So there's no better selling
a good testimony, right?
Technique than that. Yeah.
So when you look ahead as we wrap up our discussion, what's the biggest challenge besides personnel, and that obviously is a major one, that you see in your space and the rest of this year heading into next year that you have to overcome as a challenge?
So I think I'm going to say the same that everybody else is saying, but I'm going to say it in a slightly different way. AI is our biggest challenge, but actually AI to me it's either a replacement strategy or it's a reimagination strategy. And what we've always been looking about with playground mentality is the reimagination side.
Right.
So to get people to absorb AI, to work with AI differently, the biggest gap and the biggest challenge is getting leaders who are, one, vulnerable enough to work with AI, keen enough, embed that into their days, but have this reimagination construct in their head rather than seeing a fear or a job loss.
Anxiety.
So that's what we're working on. We're going to train people in AI over the next 24 months. We've got a really good product with a partner that's out there. And that's what we're going to do. But we're going to do it in an experimental, real, pragmatic way so people get it. Because it's be more wrong in many ways, as the title of the book says. Yeah.
Yeah. When you think about what AI brings, it's a tool that is an asset. It's not a replacement. If you effectively understand the value of it, I firmly believe people can coexist. It's when they have anxiety unnaturally that it's, attorneys are afraid all of a sudden they're not going to be needed anymore. Barristers, I think it's called in England, UK. I mean, because it's just a contract, and AI can spit out the contract as fast as anybody else. But when it gets down to the understanding of, well, AI is not going to go to court. They're not going to be the one who's going to be arguing in front of the judge and all the people there. So as long as an attorney can understand that, they shouldn't have fear. But the people who do the clerical work for the attorney, they may have some apprehension. They've got to really figure out how to create their value. Mm-hmm. So when you look at everything, that you've done, Colin, you guys are really, I love the playground stuff. I love the fact that you guys have a mentality of experimenting and not just saying a cookie cutter way to solve a problem. Everyone's got a uniqueness and you got to customize what you do. Mm-hmm. So to do that requires, like you say, an experienced team. Mm-hmm. And your team of people are all getting to their point where they're going, okay, do I want to keep doing this? Colin's doing it. And now we're going, okay, who are we going to bring up off the bench to really help? And in correlation to that and what we're observing right now, England with that phenomenal match over Mexico and football. And then eventually it's going to boil down to potentially England, Argentina, France, and maybe Spain. I don't know. Yeah. But the U.S., they got their lesson taught to them last night. So I think the main point is you got to have a deep bench and you got to bring players up. So how do you plan on getting more people?
It's a good question.
That's my last question for you.
So one of the things that we've always had is our clients want to join us. Yeah, they want to become part of our organization. But we've had an 80% rejection of clients going through. So we have an assessment process. It's been used for about 20 years, and we reject about 80% of the people. Bizarrely, though, what it does is it helps the people who are rejected to identify what they want to do and where they want to go. And that's useful feedback. But what is identified is the behaviors that are critical, particularly now, for the future. So what we've got to do is we've got to eat our own dog food, drink our own champagne, as they say. We've got to start, and we are starting this, to look at almost the apprenticeship type schemes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How do we bring people on and grow? So I've given probably more jobs in my business to friends of my daughters, friends of clients, to come in and work with us. Because in that place, we will identify the people of the future and identify the social relationship skills, other things we'll need for that. But our clients are helping us do it as well, because there's a number of people who are playing in the client, want to join us, come and join us. And then we grow for the future with the reputation and their knowledge of what we've done for them.
Right. They already have a base of familiarity and knowledge, which is huge, because you can't that's the toughest thing probably to teach.
Agreed.
Well, our time is up. It was a quick 30 minutes. I really enjoyed our dialogue together. I hope you have as well. So, Colin, do us a favor and please let the audience know what's the best way to reach you and learn more about your company. And also, where do they get that book, Be More Wrong?
Yeah, Be More Wrong's it's on Amazon. It's on all the big book sellers. Good. You can get that there. There's BeMoreWrong.com, where you can find out a bit more about the book if that's of interest to you. Potential2.com is our website. Again, you'll get some more information. My email address, happy to put it out there, is colinh@potential2.com. And you'll find me on LinkedIn. So very happy for people to reach out. You never know where a conversation starts and where it finishes. So it's good for me to talk to people.
So true and so well said. Colin, it's been a pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. I know the audience will. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Dennis.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Principal Podcast. We hope you've learned valuable lessons and strategies to grow your firm and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.